right, so it is 5:34, so we're opening the meeting. And I guess we'll do a roll call since Mark's online. So Mark, do you want to start? You're here. I guess is not a member. He doesn't have to, you don't have to tell us that you're here, so
Right,
don't.
if you're all present, you're good.
All right, okay, Bill, you want to start?
Bill Marachek here.
Kate Ryan here.
Liz Cobb's here.
Josh Fay here.
All right, so we have a quorum. And welcome to Erin.
Thank
So very nice to have you here.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, so approval of minutes, there are 3 sets. I owe 1 set, and I apologize if I did not have a chance to get those. One thing when reading the minutes, since we're rotating now, who writes them? I have a suggestion that we write in who wrote them. So that somebody in public would know who to go to or something. What do you think?
I agree. It's a very easy thing to add.
I've
Easy, right?
seen in other boards that they respectfully submitted by, and you put your name at the end.
At the end, okay.
So,
The
packet, so we know who wrote them.
2 sets, not 3. The agenda notes 3, but there's actually only 2 sets attached.
Okay, so it's probably the one that I owe.
Apologies.
I'm such a good fan.
We'll pretend.
Yeah. You will get to it.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks you won't.
Yeah, well, actually, it's good you noted that, because I was like, which ones do I was gonna ask Jess? All right, so let's go through the ones that we do have, July 10. And we didn't have any minutes in that meeting, so again, I take full responsibility for that, because I'm sure that was me too. But anybody have any other comments? I made my 1 comment about maybe submitted respectfully or something at the end,
Yeah.
right? And otherwise, I thought this was very clear.
Agreed.
In fact, I thought they obviously were written by different people, but I thought both sets were really well organized and, explicit, right? So, any comments, or should we approve them together or separately?
We can do it together.
Together, okay. Erin, did you have a chance to read them, or do you have any questions about
Nope.
what we try to cover?
Nope, I had a chance to
No.
read them.
Okay.
Good.
All right, great. We use a lot of acronyms, so if those are not clear to you, please
Sure.
jump in, ask. I'm still doing that myself. Okay, so do I hear an approval?
I move we approve minutes of July 10th and August 14th meetings 2024.
I second.
Terrific. Thank you both. And now I know that I owe June 12.
Yeah,
So-
roll call.
All in favor?
Oh, all in favor, thank you.
Yeah, no,
All right. I'm like out of my
Don't worry.
realm here. Okay, so all in favor, Bill?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Liz, yes.
Josh, yes.
All right, so minutes approved for 2 sets. All right, so poor Joe, he's gonna miss this, but interim human resource director report or assistant town manager, which is now over to you. Erin.
Yes,
Okay.
awesome. So I wanted to give you guys some recruitment updates because we had talked a little bit about some of the new roles and where things were progressing within the interview status.
Mhm.
We have concluded our CMLP director interviews as well as the emergency communications manager interviews, and we're kind of in.
Erin, I'm sorry, would you mind starting just to introduce yourself? to
Oh,
us a little
sure,
bit?
sorry.
I don't know if am I the only one that's not met?
No,
Okay.
I'm Erin. I'm the new assistant HR director for Concord. I started August 19th, so just about a month with the town.
Terrific.
Would
Yeah.
you give us just a little bit about
Where you
your
came
background? You came from, we know you're from Lowell and.
Yep, I'm from Lowell. Born and raised. I went to UMass Lowell undergrad, Fitchburg for my graduate. And I actually come from the private sector. I come from a staffing agency. I managed many contingent workforce programs for temps and direct hire staffing and things like that. And then I moved into the corporate HR role. And I was there for about 4 years and just ready for my next step. And here I am in Concord.
And your favorite pumpkin spice item?
Yes, Starbucks definitely has top tier pumpkin spice. Dunkin's just doesn't really compare, but yes, that's about me.
Next time.
Do you have any questions about
Do
any?
you have a hard commute? Yeah, Lowell sounds like a terrible.
It's really not too bad. I was
Yeah.
commuting to Marlboro before, so like
This is
distance
better.
wise, it's definitely better, but you
Yeah.
still hit this same amount of traffic, I would
Yeah.
say, just because 495 is unpredictable.
Yeah.
But mostly it's Route 2 and the Rotary for me, just sitting there for a little bit, and it's a scary Rotary. So,
Yes.
just
People
getting
hit
through that.
aggressively, don't
Yes.
they?
yeah.
We hope it won't be there forever.
I remember on my first day, I was like, oh boy, go slow, just
Yeah,
take your time.
but with that prison closed, right?
Yeah.
We're really hopeful. I think it will be a while though. Mark, you might know more about that from select board.
I'll put in a plug for tomorrow night's information set forum at the townhouse if you want to hear more about how that's going.
What time is that?
7 o'clock.
Okay, great.
And on Zoom, so you can
And on Zoom.
join it from home.
Terrific.
I'm sure a lot of people will. I have a few.
Yeah, it's going to be on Zoom. It's a forum run by DCAM, the State Department and they'll basically lay out a timeline in the beginning of the process. So
Mm,
feel free to watch it from home.
Great. All right, I've started this as a very chatty meeting. I'm sorry.
No,
Nice.
I was really excited to give you guys these updates. I just didn't even think to introduce myself. Apologies.
No,
Okay, so we've concluded interviews for CMLP director and the emergency communications manager for public safety. So we're kind of looking for next steps on that. Hasn't been decided just yet. And then we just actually started first round interviews for our payroll manager opening. We met with 6 candidates yesterday. We'll meet with an additional one on Friday, and then we'll move on to second rounds and then deliberations for our final finalists, I guess.
For 6 interviews, were there more candidates beyond that? Was there
Yes,
good
yeah,
interest in that?
Yeah,
position?
actually, a lot of applications, a good candidate pool.
terrific.
What-
And how about the, sorry,
No,
no, you go.
what do you think is driving the interest in a position like the payroll manager or any of these positions? What are you seeing, reading, hearing that seems to be attractive?
From the payroll manager interviews that I sat in on yesterday, it did seem like people were looking for like that next step in their career as far as like management, so I think that was a really attractive piece of it. I don't know if I can really speak to the CMLP or the emergency communications because I jumped in as of like second round. But I'm in the payroll managers from the get-go, so I feel like I can keep you guys better updated on that one.
Maybe you shouldn't answer, but I was just wondering if you're getting candidates, private and public, from people who have municipal experience, or is it
Both.
a mix?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yep. I'm getting both.
I think that it's illustrative of the situation that we face, that Concord faces, or any municipality or any company faces, is that people reach a level and they want to do something more responsible.
Mhm.
And it's likely that kind of an opportunity will not exist in their current employer or municipality. And so they look for something in another, hopefully close by.
Mhm.
And it's not bad, it's just the fact that some of turnover is unavoidable
Mhm.
when you have the desire and you don't have the opportunity. Now, part of the opportunity, though, it rests with, I think, the HR organization and, how do you communicate to a manager about trying to give them a sense as to what they can tell their employees. But it's pretty common.
Yeah.
For the payroll manager role, we really want a candidate that is motivated because this isn't just a clock in, clock out, like this is really someone that needs to have some strategy behind what's going on for payroll, especially with our implementation of Munis. Having some sort of initiative to make sure that's up and running smoothly is gonna be really key.
Time consuming key.
Yeah, that was actually another piece of my update was that we're continuing in the Munis conversion. Today we were working on employee imports, so we're making progress within that. All really excited to kind of get that up and running.
Yeah, that's great. So, Erin, as you're giving the update, what I have in front of me is the hires and
Yes,
terminations.
I have that as well.
And how could you relate for us where, so the light plant obviously is, you've had, let's see, resignations 3 and one retirement, and you're replacing the retirement, is that correct? For the CMLP, is that right?
I don't want to answer this incorrectly.
Okay, all right, yeah,
I
Is
think
it-
it was the resignation,
it was the resignation.
the
okay.
director position, and I know he moved to another light plant.
Okay, Okay, and then, so I was, and probably it's my ignorance, human resources is where the new position that you just described, you've been in part of the payroll management is in HR, it's not human services, right?
No,
It's HR, yeah,
like falling with under the HR.
yeah,
I think it was gonna be falling under accounting, actually.
under
Under
accounting.
finance.
Department,
Finance,
finance.
finance,
Okay.
apologies.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so that's no, that's not one of these three hires, so the three that are on here are probably already done, right?
Yes.
And so,
Mhm.
yeah, so that group is growing,
Mhm.
the headcount's growing there.
If I could insert, the benefits manager that was just recently hired, good evening, everyone. The benefits
Hi.
manager that was just recently hired in human resources, the payroll manager replaces that position. So
Okay.
Melissa just joined us from finance and we're backfilling that with a new role. It's you all approved it at last meeting. It's a management analyst level payroll manager. Who'll both be doing day-to-day tasks as well as overseeing the process. So it's a working manager.
Okay, terrific, thank you, good to see you, Kimberly. And good to know, we've
You
heard
all-
about Louisiana, but not Florida right now, going through a hurricane, so.
Yeah, I'm sad to hear all that they may be getting, but yes, glad that it's not our way this time.
All right, any questions or any other comments on the progress there? I have one, if you guys are okay. So we have been talking all along, as we have been, collaborating with the HR department, with Kimberly and with Jess, about the DEI aspect of this, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and how does that look when you're doing your hiring roster? So you've had one that you're from the get-go working on.
Mhm.
Did you have a diverse array of applicants?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
great, great. And with that, anything, maybe Kimberly would know more at this point in your tenure here, but Kimberly, was there any specific changes in how we're trying to recruit that made that prospect better, or what do you think?
There are a number of, I believe, 3 additional recruitment sources that we added about a year ago, maybe a little more, that were part of our DEI initiative. We're using, I believe for every job, Magnolia is posting with Pink Jobs, diversity.com, and there's one other that I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but we're casting a wider net in the goal of bringing in additional candidates.
All right,
The right approach.
that's great. And Kate, do you use those same resources in your town? Yeah, are there others that?
Yeah, I can't remember, there's a third that is out of my head at the moment too, but yeah,
Yeah.
we've used those quite a bit.
Great. Great. Does anything come through LinkedIn? I'm hearing that LinkedIn is too much.
We
Yes.
actually have had a recent hire through LinkedIn. It was our first. We chose to use GovHR has a very robust network within Massachusetts. They do a lot of compensation work and other work within Massachusetts. And so I'm going to say about 3 months or maybe 4 months ago, we began working with them because they have one person that all they do is social media. We are giving our positions to them, an unlimited number for the same price, and they are using their social media connections to bring applications in. And we did make our first hire that put on her application that she was coming through because of seeing us on through GovHR on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Now,
You said-
the trick to that, if I may, is not only that we leverage GovHR and their social media outreach, but that our senior managers have committed to share that post so that it explodes through their network within LinkedIn. And that's
Yeah.
really where, it's what would you call it? A multiplication.
Yeah. You have to go on mute or hang up through your computer. I think that's the.
Thank you.
Okay. So one other question, well, two questions. So if LinkedIn would help with our network, should we be posting things as a personnel board? Would that be helpful? I don't have that network. I don't, but maybe you do. I mean, there
I
might
don't know
be
who's in my
others.
network, but that's the thing, you never know
Yeah,
who in
that's
your
true.
network.
I would not turn down anyone's assistance on LinkedIn because, you know, if you've built your network, obviously it can be both deep and wide. But if you have municipal connections or connections to any of these, we have such a wide variety of jobs open, you know, on any given time. That if the personnel board would be willing to leverage their LinkedIn profiles to assist, you could absolutely follow GovHR.
Okay.
And you'll see, I'm gonna warn you, you'll see numerous other towns that are utilizing this same service. So it'll all show up in your feed, and you can forward those that that you have any interest in for the town of Concord to your groups. Yeah.
Terrific. And then the second question, Kimberly, is, you know, knowing the breadth and depth of GovHR and what the group can do, do they have a vetting process that also supports, because I also think you can get a huge number of applicants that might not be viable. Is that something GovHR does with that contract we have with
No.
them? Are you?
No, all we have them doing right now is posting a paragraph with a link. And then the person hits the link and goes to our application page here on the town's website. Now, GovHR for a fee will do a number of things for you. They'll do, you know, outreach recruitment for you. They'll vet. But all we did was ask for their assistance in getting the word out, and we take it from there at this point.
Terrific. All right, well, it's good to know those services are there too. That might be new for you to know too,
It is, yeah.
right? And and for certain positions, like really important ones, it might be beneficial to do that extra, you know, get that extra resource or something, but that would go over to HR. That's just talk with our group here. Okay, so if that's all right, then Erin, we'll go back to you, and there's some new positions. Is that where we are?
Number 4, the review and revote of the PPP 10.2, pay philosophy and salary administration. Actually, Kimberly was gonna speak to that one as well, and then I'll jump in for the next.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just tee up. This was an item that came before the board last week. Well, actually, last month, and it was a redraft. Liz, based on some suggestions that you had made. So you'll see the red letter version under the second paragraph, Town of Concord pay philosophy. We did what I'll call the flip, where we originally talked about recruitment and then retention. We flipped it to talk about retention and then recruitment. And then in the second paragraph under that same heading, we talked about how the town strives to foster a culture of trust and mutual respect. And so last month, the board did take up this item and reviewed it, but they pended it for a month in order to have a full complement of the board in order to take a vote.
Unfortunately, we don't have Joe with us, who's not a complete full.
I think the issue partly was some of these changes were ones you requested, and we wanted to make sure that you felt comfortable with the language, which,
Thank you.
as I said to Kimberly at the time, having done the minutes for that meeting, I felt like they did capture what you had
Yeah.
hoped for, but
They
I
look great.
yeah, wanted to make sure you felt the same.
Yes. I was gonna make a joke saying, I think it's better probably than that, but then I started laughing, so. Anyway, yeah, I think this looks really nice. I think the idea of putting that in writing with the pay philosophy is great, and obviously other aspects of it were very clear. Any other comments or
No, I agree.
questions?
So I'll move to approve the rewrite of PPP 10.2 that's presented in the packet.
Second.
Okay, and a roll call.
Yes,
Josh is yes, Liz is yes.
Yes.
And yes,
Okay,
we would know, there'd be a revised effective date of, would it be today, or I know that August 14th is in the draft, but.
Yes, Josh, thank you for pointing that out. Erin, we'll just need to make sure that when Magnolia posts it, that date is corrected.
Okay,
All right?
terrific.
thank you.
Progress, when we approve and motion something, we can check a box somewhere, that's really good. Okay, and I guess it's followed by a clean version, but still same thing that Josh wanted on the date. Okay. Next is program coordinator. Usually we've been now looking at these together
Mhm.
and then approving them as a group.
Okay.
That's where we went, right? Yeah, so. Do you want to give us some highlights on
Sure.
this, or is that Kimberly?
I can take
You can
this
do it.
one.
All right, good for you.
So for the program coordinator, our factor analysis actually showed that the pay grade for this role should be increased to a pay grade 3. There was additional supervisory responsibility added where they're overseeing some volunteers. And then there was some more information we received as far as what the responsibilities look like on the newsletter, so we added some more content to that bullet as well.
the only comment I have is that this isn't a non-exempt position. Correct?
Mm,
Or has this been? It looks, I mean, I'm looking at the page.
It is
Mhm.
non-exempt administrative position.
And I think this is maybe a difference between the private sector and the public sector is that I don't think I ever had a non-exempt position having people report to that person as a boss.
mhm.
And for reasons even that goes to the fact that the determination, there are many factors that determine whether a position is exempt or non-exempt.
Mhm,
Well, managing people
mhm.
is clearly one that fits into the exempt category.
Mhm.
So I don't mean to, I'm just commenting on what the difference is. And whether or not that resonates with anybody in terms of the actual then determination that this is a salary grade 3.
Would you like for me to address that, or were you asking for the board?
No, I was asking essentially, thank you, I was not clear. I was asking for you, Kimberly, or someone, or Aaron to just talk about that particular element.
Yeah. If this person were making recommendations on hiring or discipline or terminations, or if they were doing any type of evaluations, et cetera. But really, this is just overseeing volunteers, directing them during the weekly luncheon and that type of thing. So we have a number of positions that may direct work on occasion, but do not supervise in the traditional managerial sense of the word. And so those are consistently non-exempt under the plan that was approved at town meeting. The compensation and classification study that was approved at town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know that terminology, so I'm not the right one to look to, and I'm very impressed that you three would know that terminology. So any other comments about exempt, non-exempt in the categories?
Is there is non-exempt, are there other non-exempt positions at salary grade 3? Is that normal in salary grade 3? Yeah.
Kimberly?
Yes, it is. And I was just reaching for my grid. I believe every position in salary grade 3, and I want to say 4 and potentially 5 are all non-exempt. But in order to be sure, I would have to check on that, but that's my recollection.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be an outlier.
I'll take a stab at least providing an insight, perhaps, Liz.
Thank you.
The exempt and non-exempt is a terminology that you find in the Federal Labor Standards Act, or FLSA. And that particular law, which has been in existence for, I don't know, 40, 50 years, it's a long time, sets criteria for positions in which overtime is authorized by
Oh.
virtue of the position, so they're non-exempt. Meaning that they're non-exempt from the act. And if you're an exempt employee, that's typically think of synonymously as a salary person. So the difference is whether or not somebody is entitled to overtime or non-exempt versus those who are exempt, who are essentially on a salary.
And the bigger risk is when you misclassify in the other direction and call somebody exempt when they should get overtime.
Yes.
And in this case, we're saying they should still get overtime. And I agree, you know, it sounds to me like this is not traditional managerial responsibility. That would be triggering the exempt status.
But it might give them, the person in the position might give them some practice at understanding how to coordinate
Sure.
and manage, and so they could, grow
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I think that description of, may oversee volunteers is not, necessarily triggering, managerial. You're right about the performance evaluations and hiring, firing type decisions. Makes sense to me. I think it's a good question.
Josh, that raises a really good point. I don't know if you had experience with when you misclassify somebody, it's a very costly exercise for the company, or I'm sure for a municipality, to defend itself. If they really feel that, that they're being unfairly
Denied overtime.
denied.
Denied
Yeah.
overtime, yeah.
So it's a really important decision
Right.
that has to be made by the municipality or by a private company. So that you can always err on the side if you call somebody non-exempt, because, they're gonna get overtime.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, the FLSA exempt, non-exempt, isn't that part of your factor when you're sort of determining for a new, for example, a new position that would play into your factor methodology in determining where they fall on your scale versus exempt, non-exempt, that is included?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right, well, that was a good discussion, at least for me, to learn, so thank you very much. But very helpful, I think, too, to really see how much goes into these discussions. And when we get to senior GIS, the non was erased, so that's
Yeah.
timely.
Yeah, Vernon, I think you're good.
Do you guys have any more questions on the program coordinator? Shall we move on?
No, that sounds like a reasonable.
May
Yeah.
if I may, Erin, I'd like to suggest that we update the date approved when we post this to
Yes.
September of 2024.
Yes. Noted. Perfect. All right, so on the same topic of exemption status, though, that is what the changes are gonna be for these next two, for the senior GIS analyst. So while these were initially approved by the board, they were approved with the wrong exemption status. So they were approved as non-exempt, but they should be exempt. So that is the change for both of these roles.
Okay, and Kimberly, you'd mentioned up through 5 generally can often be non-exempt, but by 8 exempt would be a salaried role.
There's a mixture at some of the mid-pay grades, depending on what their duties and responsibilities are. And I just would also add to Erin's comments with my apologies for these adjustments. These were posted properly and recruited for properly. One was an internal promotion and one is and it has been put out for internal promotion so that people could apply for. We had multiple potential applicants. And so I just want to give the board confidence that they were handled properly. We're just making sure the paperwork catches up here.
Which is to say they were recruited and hired as exempt.
I'm sorry?
So you mean to say they were recruited and hired as exempt employees? Like the posting was as an exempt position?
They have been recruited for properly with the proper exemption
Exempt,
status.
being exempt,
Because
okay.
we're taking non out of the title, so it's exempt.
Right, we're not, in other words, there's not somebody in this title who we're about to tell, you're no longer in a non-exempt status and you don't get overtime anymore, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
That
tough
would
one.
be a tough conversation, yes.
That's a tough one.
Good, and those are the only changes.
Yes,
And somehow we missed those when we approved them last time. So, that gets us back, I think, a little bit to the discussion of the role that we play with these documents, right? Because we do approve them and that means a lot in the system.
Mhm.
But we really need, like, for example, I should have known what those terms were more technically. And I'm asking now, which is really late in the game, right? I mean, maybe I knew it a year ago and I forgot, which is likely these days, but there's, I just think it makes me nervous to think, oh my goodness, we did that, right? We approved it as non. And Kimberly, you caught it at some time or how, I mean, what's the process?
Well, in
So-
fairness, it was likely my mistake. And so, not to make light of it, but I told Erin earlier, I don't want my mistake in putting these together last month or the month prior to reflect poorly on her. So I take responsibility for that. And, when we bring these to you, it's important that we've placed double checks in place so that we make sure that what we bring to you is accurate, so that you're not placed in that awkward position.
And we're supposed to also be a check, right, on the process, so, yeah, I mean,
I
what do you
think
think?
it would, I think it would be difficult unless we had a chart that had all of the positions in the
Yeah.
town of Concord by grade, by exempt or non-exempt, because if we had that chart.
Yeah.
We would have looked at, oh, well, it
Mhm.
says non-exempt, but you
Yeah.
take a look at grade 8
Yeah,
So,
and there's nobody there.
so can I ask, I remember us talking about this in the past, are these the last handful of positions that were reworked under the study that was done? Because I thought that we had decided that moving forward, we were just gonna approve the plan versus individual positions. Is
Right.
that, am I remembering that correctly?
These are before you, each of the three, because they are new positions. With regard to the COA position, last month, I believe, we had a retirement there. That was a person who'd been with the town for over 30 years. And so the job that was created for her under the comp and class, or the class and comp study, was this, that, and the other thing. And when she left, there's no one person that can do everything that she had in her job responsibilities. It was a higher level position. And so what we did was we broke out her responsibilities across existing staff. And we brought two before you last month and one before you this month that were adjustments because her duties had to be picked up by, or we chose to pick them up by existing staff who had the ability to take on the additional roles. And now these other two, the program analyst in Public Works and the senior GIS analyst, are brand new positions. And so we're bringing those to you for the first time, or for the correction. And then if we make minor adjustments to duties that don't have any effect on the factor analysis, then the board has said those do not need to come before you any longer. But anything that's new, we're going to have your stamp of approval on.
I'll make a note of that in the minutes, because this is
Yeah.
that's a key.
you raised a really good
differentiator.
point, and that it's important to have a history here as to what we actually have agreed to do
Yeah.
presently and going forward. Which, I mean, I have no difficulty with how Kimberly has presented it. I mean, I think it makes good sense,
Yeah,
but new positions, that gives us the opportunity to.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
closer.
Yeah, and also as new positions, then to have a dialogue that's looking at the strategy of how and why and what's the restructure and integration. So that's the role that we've kind of laid out, right?
Yeah.
But it's a good point. So it's separated between, the alignment with class and comp. And then anything that's shift changing specifically.
Significantly or
Yeah.
brand new, yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
Yep.
Great,
Perfect.
all right, thank you,
Do
Kimberly.
we need to approve these? Okay.
Yes.
I move to accept the 3 positions as presented in our packet.
Second,
With updates.
As
on
revised,
updates.
yeah, as revised.
I second that.
And I say yes, yeah,
yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, everybody's yes, so, all right, so thank you, both Kimberly and Erin.
Thank you.
for that. The only thing without printing things is I have to quickly go back to the. All right, so we looked at the classification actions, and now we're on to the discussion of personnel board charge and timeline. So I'll just give Erin a quick update that, Erin, we've been working as a board. I don't know if Jess or Kimberly has given you an update, but there was a personnel study task force that the town had a year-long endeavor to really investigate what was the role for this personnel board. And that it finished up in 23? No, 22.
22.
22, and then we've spent last year trying to implement on a lot of the changes there. And one big one that we got through with everyone's help, including Kimberly here, was doing a change to the bylaw. And that had to go to town meeting in April,
Okay.
and it was approved. So we had really changed a lot, and we had a lot of great help from Kate, who's in a HR role in another town too. We didn't really introduce ourselves to
You
you,
do.
right?
we should have done that.
Yeah, we should have done that. We'll do that before we end,
Sure.
okay? But everybody has different skills that are really, benefit for the whole team here.
Mhm.
And it was very helpful to do that with the bylaw so that we could streamline it. It had been updated bit by bit over decades.
Mhm.
And it really needed a 21st century polish to it. So that's what we did with a lot of help. And we had to go through the select board and get approval and so on. And then there's a chart. So those two documents really are the anchors. There's a third, which is the personnel policies and procedures. And what we did is really pull a lot that was in the bylaw
Mhm.
and put them into these PPPs, because otherwise a lot of information had to be approved at town meeting. Anything in the bylaw,
Mhm.
an update or change of anything would have to go back to town meeting for approval.
Right.
And so we pulled things out of that, and then we streamlined with a lot of dialogue, the charge to make it more relevant. And now Kate's gonna, walk us through the changes there.
Okay.
And that's a little bit of history. Is that, did I
Great.
forget anything?
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
You condensed a year's worth of work in.
So easy.
It felt harder when you were doing it.
Why did it take so long?
So I'm happy to sort of walk through some of the changes. I think, you and Bill had actually taken this offline to do a lot of work on the charge. I don't see any significant, changes that I would make other than, minor, structural, but I'm not sure sort of where we want to go from here. If people want to discuss what they think about it, if there's anything that we're missing. I don't see anything that we're missing based on the conversations we've had in the past. I think we've captured the bylaw and this is our, almost like a mission statement, broad picture. This is what we do. And here's some information about our goals and what our founding documents, our governing documents. So
Is Mark still on with us? I don't see him up there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, Mark. So Mark, you had put comments in here too. So since we're at a certain
Yeah.
point in the discussion, do you want to, do you have any comments or thoughts about where it is now? Bill and I commented on your comments. I don't know if you saw that. So if you have any pushback back or, anything that you want to contribute here, that's great.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the version that's labeled draft in the packet.
Yeah,
I gotta say, I'd love to see a clean copy because I can't quite process exactly what it is, but I think I mentioned at the last meeting and I think that where we are in this is once the personnel board feels pretty comfortable that the charge captures the sort of document of understanding of how the personnel board wants to interact with the citizen side of the governance system. So now we're talking about, you know, what does the personnel board do to help, you know, discharge the duties that we as citizens have to try and provide some governance over how the town is you know, behaving and as an employer. Once you feel like that's captured in, then the next step would be to take that draft and for me to circulate it amongst the select board, and we would see whether any of the other select board members have any input. Have, as you noted, provided some thoughts that I feel like tracking the goals and having some initiatives that we can point to and sort of delegate the responsibility for focusing on initiatives related to particularly recruiting, particularly employee relations matters, and the discharging of the duties of the organizational design and structure are the things that I think the select board should be looking to the personnel board as the center of excellence for that, and really reporting back to us periodically on how we're doing on that. And so I've already input that. We would provide that the draft of the proposed charge to the select board. Let the select board members do that. If we agree to it, then that's a handshake. And if any of the other members want to add anything or make any suggestions, that would come back to a meeting, and the goal would be to approve a new charge. We don't have anything that's in the modern format of a charge for the personnel board. The last time this exercise was done appears to have been 1985, so well before most of us had any real involvement in this. So it would be nice to kind of capture the state of affairs now.
Did you have any reaction, Mark, to the enumerated goals and initiatives on the second page of the draft?
They look good to me. I'm going to try to, so just because of the crossouts and so forth, I think that, so they are strategize and advise on the implementation of the performance and appraisal system.
Yeah.
Monitor overall class and compensation system equity and plan implementation, review and assess tracking of the employee morale over time, and assess and support strategic recruitment and retention. So those certainly capture the things that I think are most important, and I appreciate the way this board is clearly sort of working its way into having that dialogue. And I think it's very helpful.
Well, I know you mentioned employee relations. Is the review and assessment of tracking of employee morale over time, does it get to that? Did you get the employee, like the level of employee relations you're thinking of, or is it something stronger?
To me, it does capture that. I think that it's a matter of keeping a finger on the pulse of that and being able to say whether directionally that's how's that doing? Is it improving? Is it staying the same, or do we have reasons for concern?
We did change the verbs, right? That's what we wanted to be careful. I think, Josh, that's what you're getting at, right? Because we're not in charge of doing a survey.
Of course, yeah, I note that comment, and I
Right.
think it's a good one.
So, but we would oversee, and then Erin and Kimberly, what we would like to do with Mark too, as our liaison to the select board, is just be available to you. I'm a former manager of teams, but these guys are real experts in HR too. So they can really be a resource, I think, to help as you, negotiate new things, and the class and comp will get updated more regularly after COVID. There was a hiatus, so, there is, ongoing work, and just to get another set of eyes that really you can trust on things is kind of what we were trying to go for.
Yeah.
Does that cover it for you? How about you, Kate?
Yeah, I had one question about the goals, and I just wanted to make sure that the board's goals are in line with the town and HR's goals, so that we're not imposing our own. I mean, I don't think that any of, HR would not want to have motivated employees, morale and all of these things, but I just wanna make sure that we're not, that we're in line with what the town's overarching personnel administration goals are.
Right. I guess
So-
if I may, there's probably two relevant things that are, live discussions at the moment. Right? If you were to refer to the select board packet of the most recent meeting, which was September 9th, just a couple days ago, and I think it's almost the very last page of that document is the town manager's goals for this year. Maybe it's the second to last page. And amongst those goals, the first 5 of them are organizational resilience goals, which have to do with a compensation plan that attracts and retains a highly competent municipal workforce, as well as some other goals specific around that, a merit pay plan, a recruitment strategy, those kinds of things. So those are very much in alignment with what you're talking about. There's also a second category around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Some of those speak during number 6, for example, finalize a strategic plan that will move the town from merely being EEO compliant, which I'm sure some of you would recognize that, to one that integrates and leverages differences to create business value. And again, so what I'm suggesting here is that the select board is also working on a set of select board goals. So ideally, the goals that the personnel board would recognize would at least be complementary and somewhat coordinated with these goals that the town manager is establishing for herself, including some strategic planning goals and the goals that the select board is putting forward for the year. So that's the interlocking system that I think we're operating in. And so I can probably right now I could certainly forward to you what the current draft of the select board goals are. So we discussed these goals a little bit right at the end of Monday night's meeting, and we're going to come back to them. And basically, the town manager is self-reporting on these, and we, in my perfect world, the personnel board would be helping the select board really gain some insight into how we're doing with this from the elements that you're paying attention to.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mark, because that's really good coordination. So, you kind of have our backs on that front. That's really helpful. And Kate and I were able to pull up the town manager goals and objectives here, so we can certainly find them easily. And you said it's just a draft right now for the select board goals.
Yeah, that's I think what we need to do. And if you're thinking we're ready, I'll start having the conversation with Mary, the chair of the select board, in terms of what meeting agenda to put it on. And I think at that time it would make sense to come in with sort of an update of where things stand with the personnel board, and a presentation of a draft charge for comments, and then allow the select board members, the others who are not elbow deep in this like I am, to weigh in before we agreed. And again, I've mentioned this a couple times, but I'll say it every time. The personnel board is in the town charter. It's different from other committees and commissions in the sense that it's not created by the select board or by the town manager. It exists outside of those structures, and that's why I think it's more of a negotiated charge than what we typically do, which is we write up a charge and say, this is what we want this committee to be doing. And we kind of own and control that. So that's the difference here that makes it a little unique.
Right. All right, well, I think that gives us, you know, I think we are ready, Mark, because I know it'll take a bit, maybe a month or more to get on your agenda.
Right.
And that'll give us time to, you know, to do minor, you know, tweaks if we need them, but it sounds like we're on the right page, and probably the one next step would be to compare to the town managers and also at least to the select board draft. If there's anything that Erin, you and Jess want to highlight or call to our attention, especially with now this getting pretty firmed up. Make sure that as it trickles, you know, my assumption is that when you see the town manager, then the HR piece sits with you guys and you roll up, right? So that they should be aligned, and we should be aligned too. So if there's anything that we misinterpreted how that went and how you're then implementing, you might catch that too, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I think we're about ready for that, Mark.
Okay,
It'll
good.
it'll take that time, right?
Yeah, so if somebody can get me the Word version of this, I'll start working to get that on the agenda, and I'll coordinate with the chairs about when we think it will come up for the select board.
Great. I did go to my on computer copy and cleaned it up. It does fit on one page, so kudos to Bill, who really worked for that. There were a couple of technical things that are still in comments though. And I'm not sure that they ever got resolved, so like really technical, but like, is 1921 the right bylaw to reference? And then when we look at the list of governing documents, we put the bylaw in there from 1921, but really, is that?
Where the current governing document, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that we need to refer
I
to.
think so. I agree, I don't think we need to refer to it.
All right, so then that's some wordsmithing at the top there. Was established, so establishing it and saying it's been that long is just saying, look, it's really old, and we're, you know, maybe what we should say though is. Emphasize, you said it's in the town charter,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that's all we need to say, because that's the second half of that first sentence, right?
As far back
Was
as
established, is in the Concord Town Charter, because that, as Mark describes it, usually, that's the key factor, right? Is that we are a board that's in the charter, rather than the austerity of 1921. What do you think? Do you guys agree with that?
Yes, but I do like the history going back to
I
1991.
kinda
I
like
like that it's
it.
narrative. I don't think it matters in terms of, but it's, yeah, wow, 100 and some years. you know,
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
but-
all right, so then that's fine there, but do we want it in the governing documents or?
I don't think we need to, it's not, yeah.
No, okay, so we could take it out
The
there,
charter should probably be linked, but.
yeah. Yeah, okay, so we'll start with that, and the charge is this one, right, and then the bylaw. That was updated, and that's it, just the most up-to-date things. Is there anything about the handbook that we should look in, we should list in the government? Oh, it is, it's just on the
Yeah,
next
it's
page,
like-
sorry.
Um,
Okay,
I have one, so again, like I said, structural change, just the second paragraph under board responsibilities.
Mhm.
The personnel board has both advisory and administrative responsibilities, including but not limited to the following, this is how I would say it. And then colon, and then put these as bullets, so support the town manager maintaining, recommend programs, practices. Provide administrative oversight as bullets rather than in one paragraph. I don't know if that would push us over to 2 pages, but I just think it reads a little easier that
you
way.
can make 2 columns,
Columns or
right?
something.
No,
Like I
the
said,
only,
it's just-
the only question I have on that, Kate, though, is can we compare that to the goals that at the very end? Because will it
Right.
look like those are competing or not? And are they?
No, it's a different section, so this is our responsibilities, I mean.
It might be, sorry,
No, what?
it might be question of formatting.
Yeah, it's just a formatting issue, I
So-
didn't wanna get us into. a
so we
rabbit
could-
hole.
We could format one way and we could format a different way. And certainly you can reduce the margins
We can make your
So
one pager.
I don't think there's gonna be a problem making it one page.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think if we could look at a final version next time
Yeah.
without slowing down and getting it on the, whenever
Yeah.
the select board can take it, that's great, but probably we'll be able to see it one more time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is something, Aaron, that if it's, Mark, if you get us on more quickly than we think, then we can do it rotating as long as all comments go back to Aaron. Because it's public meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you had to deal with that in your last role, Aaron, but it's a big deal here.
And if you could just make a note that when you and or Magnolia are preparing the agenda, that particular piece should be listed
Okay.
again.
Good point, yeah, so we don't forget it, yeah. Does that sound good, Mark?
It does, thank you.
Okay. Okay, great, I think we hit it finally, this has been dragging and deferred and moved and waited,
Not the bylaw,
right?
that's the big.
The bylaw is, yeah, the heavy lift,
Yeah,
isn't
that
it?
was a big.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, well, thank you, Kate, for leading that, and I'm gonna race back up to the beginning, to see where we are, okay. We're at adjournment, this is not usual, Aaron, we usually are here well past 7.
But we're trying to get it in before sunset tonight.
That's right, that's right. So, are we calling for adjournment, is that?
Did you want to go? just
Oh,
to
yeah,
get Aaron
of course, yeah, Bill, why don't you start? He's longest on the committee, I should
Well,
start with that,
no,
he's our
that's-
fearless leader.
That's not true, that is true, but, my background has been in HR. Primarily with, private and public companies, in high tech and in, the medical device pharmaceutical areas. So I was looking at, been doing that for 40 years and then I retired 10 years ago. And so now I'm a photographer
Oh,
with black and white film, so
nice.
that's how I'm spending a lot of my time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And when's your next show at Umbrella Arts?
Well, I do share a studio at the Emerson Umbrella and Mark and his wife Pam had actually been to the studio that I'm sharing. And I don't know when the next one is, but it's coming up.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I don't know if I can, my life is all that is exciting, I don't do photography, but, I'm the HR, right now, my current role, I'm the HR manager for another municipality, Wayland, down the road from here. I've been there almost 3 years now, so you do HR, so I do a little bit of everything, all the recruitment or, all of our, lead programs, accruals, you name it, I do it, so, we're a pretty small shop, so there's just 3 of us. And then my background is in public sector, I've worked in state government for a bunch of years before that, and have a master's in public policy, so. That's.
Thank you.
So I spent my career at Merck in the pharmaceutical industry, and I'm a sociologist by training, a very
Oh.
odd role for a pharmaceutical company. I was the only PhD sociologist in the company. That I knew of anyway, and that was globally. So it was an odd fit, but it was because I'm a Japan expert, so completely different than, the real expertise around the table in that way, but I have managed teams around the world and went with Merck in Japan and then in Europe and then in DC and worked in more like policy and health economic roles. So looking at how data helps us to better understand and have confidence in medicines and negotiate with governments about how those medicines should be utilized. So it's really fun, 2 kids and a husband who is really happily golfing and playing tennis now. We both retired when we moved here, so we have time, and my time is spent with you guys. And he's getting fit.
I'm not an HR expert, I'm an employment lawyer. I've been working 20 years as a lawyer in public sector, private sector. I'm currently in-house at a large healthcare company, Waltham based.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate the intros.
So I'll move that we adjourn.
I second.
All in. And we don't have to all say yes. right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. All right, thanks.
Thank you,
Mark.
Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.